everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Ready, Chris? Meeting will come to order. We have one addition to the agenda, has to do with the 3-bid waiver request. At this time, we have nobody for the open forum. Nobody sent in any comments. So we will go directly to that 3-bid waiver request. It has to do with the resurfacing of the Kingsdale pool surface around the pool. It's time sensitive, of course. We want to get it done in time to get the pool open for the next season. We sent out to 5 different, Joan, is that correct? 5 companies. We received 2 bids back, and the recommendation is to accept the better of those 2 bids. I don't see any problem with that. Joan, we've worked with this company before?
We've worked with them before with other projects, but they are well received in the community. They're rated very high, and actually on the actual surface of the pool, they are providing a 10-year warranty, which we have never gotten before.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board members concerning this request for a 3-bid waiver? Okay, then we'll just go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Well, as I read it, it seemed like Burton Pools and a bunch of these other groups didn't want to bid on it because it was too small. You know, wondering
It's
why.
not too small as much as beyond their scope. That's a very specific expertise, and building a pool from new versus taking out a deck from old where there's already existing plumbing and all that is a scary proposition for some vendors.
Oh, okay, great.
So anyway, it looks like we do have a company that can get the work done for us and do it correctly. So next week we can vote to approve this contract and get that in process.
If I could say one more thing, just to put it on record, you'll notice that the second bid is significantly higher. That is the contractor that we have worked with for years, and they have significantly beat other contractors, not for a project this big, but for all the resurfacing of the pools. So kudos to Jessica to working hard with this existing relationship we had to bring this all together so that we could save the POA about $40,000. So while other companies didn't want to touch the project, we're very excited to get the work done, and we saved money.
Good. Okay. We'll move that to next week then. Next item on the agenda, the proposed changes to bylaws, Article 5, Section 2, has to do with the vacancies resulting on the board and elections when there are more than 3 vacancies. And I will just read the proposed changes. As a result of vacancies on the board, see bylaws Article 3, Section 6, there may be instances where more than 3 vacancies must be filled in one election. In that case, the 3 candidates who receive the most votes will each be deemed elected to a 3-year term. For each additional vacancy, the candidate with the next highest number of votes will be deemed elected to serve the term of the vacancy with the most outstanding time remaining. I think that's quite self-explanatory. In the very unusual situation where we might have 3 directors going off as in the normal rotation, a director, a position open where there's 1 year left, and a position where there's 2 years left, the director receiving the 4th place finisher would receive the 2-year term. The candidate receiving or finishing in 5th place would receive the 1-year term. Is that correct, Doug?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. That's a really, really extreme example, but we felt it was best to spell it out. This is the way it's been done in the past. It was just never exactly said that way. So this is the intention. We wanted to spell it out exactly. So are there any questions? Comments?
I just have a comment, and if I'm wrong, you can clarify it. I think we're taking a lot of unnecessary backlash on this. And so, I mean, this is very clear what it's stating here, but I think some of the members are misunderstanding. Putting this in the policies does not change the situation where we have a director removed or a director quits after the ballots have been mailed. In that situation, the board will still appoint a replacement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I think people are misunderstanding that this applies to that situation, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, good.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, that brings up the question of whether we want to add something else into the wording that would make that more clear.
I think it's already covered in a separate policy, so I would hate to double up on that. I think it's clearly stated in a separate policy that.
Should we mention the policy? Reference it in this one?
I can take a look at that again. My first impression is no, but I'll look at it again before the next meeting.
Okay, we'll have that information and make sure that it exactly where it is. I know that someplace it says that after the ballots are printed and mailed, that the board has several options.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's fairly detailed in there about when the board appoints a director for the remaining term until the next succeeding election. So I'd hate to create more confusion when we're trying to clarify something, so I'll take a look at it.
yeah, this one just specifically addresses just this one, so. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. The next item up is a proposed trail enhancement. I'm going to let Tom cover this one.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about is 2 different trail improvements. The first is a proposed improvement to the back 40, and the second is the proposed transfer of land from the Trailblazers to the POA. When I say Trailblazers, it's technically not Trailblazers. It's actually Gordon Hollow LLC and A and 12th Street LLC. but effectively it would be handled through the Trailblazers. So this is the transfer of land. So I'm going to first talk about the proposed improvements to the back 40. Here is the back 40. I'm going to use my cursor and I'm going to highlight, there is Lake Ann, and these are the sections that we're going to be talking about, and they're highlighted in yellow. And what they're trying to do is they've done some analysis on trail usage for the back 40, because the back 40 has been in use since 2016, and they're finding some areas are not being used quite as much as they had anticipated.
I always have my camera on. They're like, you're not having a camera on today?
No. Can you mute that, please? So they are looking at making some improvements to this trail in the anticipation that it will be used more. So I'm going to so there's two different circles here. I'm going to first talk about the circle on the left-hand side, and you'll see what they're looking at doing is adding a new trail really close to the existing trail to create a better biking and hiking experience. Also, what is a nice benefit to this is when you go into an area that is not being used quite as much, when a trail is just not used a lot, it requires more maintenance. And when you go back in and you fix it and then it's all of a sudden used a lot more, the maintenance requirements actually go down. So it could potentially save us time and money in the future. Let me go on to the next one. The next one is this area right here, and you'll see this, we've blown this out, it's in yellow. Now what they've found is that hikers and mountain bikers like smaller trail systems, smaller loops. And this existing one is rather large without this intermediate connector. And it will create a smaller loop, and because of that we feel that it will increase usage in this area. And they're trying to do that a lot on the Little Sugar section, adding these small loops. So what they're doing, what they're proposing is what you go back in to the back 40 to make these same improvements. Okay, the next topic we're going to talk about is the possibility of land being transferred at no cost to the POA. So you see this area up here, this is ARCMO, the POA previously owned this, and this lower section right here, and I'm going to give you a better view in just a moment, I'm going to refer to this as ARCMO South, and this other section over here is Huntley. So here is ARCMO South, and you'll see the existing trails that are in place. They're already there. And what the Trailblazers are proposing is that they transfer this land from their ownership to the POA. The second section is almost done is under construction. It's almost done. And you can see here is, it's on Huntley. Here is our MAC area where you can go to member services and so forth. And you'll notice that, so this area of land, this area of land, and this area of land, everything outside is common property. And notice how the trail kind of goes in and out of Trailblazers land, back onto common property, and so forth. And so they're proposing that these 33 acres would be transferred to the POA. Okay, so a couple things. So, regarding the back 40 trails that I referenced initially, since these trails, these proposed addition of trails and the additional connector occurred after the construction agreement was in place, we would need to get an addendum to the licensing agreement approved by the board, and also the city would have to approve this, because the current agreement is very specific to the location of the trails, and this would be outside of that. So if the board approved this, it would require the city to approve it also, and I have spoken with the mayor, and He's given me a verbal indication that he didn't think it was going to be a problem, but of course that would be a vote of the City Council. With regards to Arkmo South and Huntley, we are required under our agreement to maintain that area whether we own it or don't own it. Keep in mind where the majority of the Back 40 Trail and Little Sugar are on POA common property. The trail does go on Trailblazer property, city property, and so forth. So we're still required to maintain that whether we are the actual owners of that land or not. So accepting those additional pieces of property does not increase the $35,000 commitment on Little Sugar. Okay, next. If the board approves the acceptance of the two parcels, Arkmo South and Huntley, we would then need to go to Cooper and ask their permission to subject the land and make it common property. I've had a preliminary conversation with Cooper, and they indicated their indication that was something they could accommodate for us. The Trailblazers would like to add a drinking fountain at the Huntley location and potentially add one up at Arkmo South. If the land is not subjected land to the declaration, we are unable to provide water to that location. So they would like to do that, and we would like, we've clearly seen the need to having drinking fountains at trailheads. And lastly, the Trailblazers have committed that there will be no increase in cost to the POA for both of these proposed, for the addition of the trails on Back 40 or the receipt of the two parcels on Little Sugar. So that would include trail maintenance, that would include property taxes, and other expenses, because the board is committed to maintaining the commitment that was made with regards to the 2020 plan. And so I've included that quote in here that was on all the promotional brochures when we were doing the campaign for the 2020 plan. Aside from current maintenance commitments, no additional commitment of POA funds will be considered for the expansion of trails until at least 2023. So you see that by not having any increase in expenses, we are staying true to this commitment. Joan, have I missed anything?
No, I would just point out again that in the Huntley area, it is the new hot spot of the trails, even though it's not officially done. It's a beautiful area. Because of all the trails that are compacted there, I'm not worried at all about the maintenance of it, because it's actually easier to maintain trails where there's multiple trails together. If trees go down or whatever, you're already out in one location and you can take a number of them out. I'm also not concerned about us taking this on for any reason. It's already part of the Back 40, as Tom indicated, because of the way it was built. It was actually built in a way that is going to be a little less maintenance heavy, if you will. And lastly, the one thing that I would point out is there's an opportunity, if we own this land, to monetize some things there. This would be an area that I could see future team building opportunities. We could put up some small, cost-effective pavilions where people could meet. There's already a number of people that are biking and hiking as part of a business, meeting situation. So super excited anytime we can get green space back, both at Huntley, Arkmo, and then lastly on the connector. It's a bailout opportunity. So as Tom mentioned, a lot of people like to loop through. But sometimes when you're out riding, I'm an avid biker, hiker, sometimes I don't have 3 hours to go biking. I might want to do an hour bike ride in that area. And that connector, the second one that Tom pointed out, gives us that opportunity to loop back.
So, Joan, I think what I just heard you say is that you see that there may be some potential revenue opportunities in these land transfers?
I think in the future with some thought and planning, yes.
Okay, I wanted to verify that because I think that's a potential opportunity also. I know that a lot of property owners have commented on that, and I know that we have put thought into it, and we've been looking for that, and here's an opportunity. So, that being said, are there questions, comments from the board members?
Let me jump in.
Okay,
I
Tom?
missed one thing that I wanted to add.
One more thing.
Is the Trailblazers, actually an entity that works with Trailblazers, they actually purchased the Huntley piece of property a couple years ago for $353,000, so they'd be transferring it to the POA, proposed transfer to the POA at no cost.
That's a nice gift. That's a nice gift. Okay, comments, questions?
Well, I think it's awesome that continued investment comes back.
I didn't catch that, Mike.
And that you refine the product. Trails, more trails. Investment come in refining of the product. I know it's going to get some people ruffled up about more trails. I think all the reasons you've outlined should combat that. But, you know, I know Sandy and other people feel very strongly that we said no trails, and that means no trails, not a stitch more. But I look at this continued investment as positive, and I vote yes for this.
Thank you.
I do think that a number of the members felt that with the 2020 plan, we would wait for 3 years to add more trails. And so I understand that our contract says that we will only invest $70,000 for maintenance, but I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't think that 3 years from now, or now 2.5 years from now, that we aren't going to have to spend more money in maintaining trails. So personally, I think that it goes against what the members thought they were voting for when they voted for the 2020 plan. I also have a question about the Huntley property, and I vaguely remember, and I'd have to go back and watch the city council meetings, I vaguely remember the mayor talking about these trails being built, and he referred to them as zero gravity and trails for experts. And I don't know anything about these trails at Huntley, so I'm wondering if that's the case. And with ownership comes risk and responsibility, and I know we're relying upon the Arkansas statute to not be sued over this, or at least our defense if we are sued. And I just think when we take on risky things like this, we're asking to be sued if somebody gets hurt. And from an insurance perspective, the more times we're sued, the harder it is to get insurance. And I think we've seen over the last year or two that our insurance premiums have gone up considerably. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the lawsuits, but I guess from a risk analysis, I'm just concerned about it. So can you tell us more about what these trails are? I've never walked them. I don't know if any of the other board members have walked them. I think we're just all assuming they're normal trails, but can you speak to that?
I sure can. It's a good question to ask, Sandy. They are not all expert trails. I was out there this weekend. I've been out there twice now. The first time I took my dogs, very walkable. The second time I took my bike. I'm not an expert mountain biker. I'm a intermediate mountain biker. There are areas, because this is Bella Vista, where there's more downhills and whatnot, but they built them very well with switchbacks, allowing people, to be able to slowly climb back up, whether on a foot or a bike. So yeah, there are some that are a little bit more technical, but also the way they built them, they're wider paths, they're smoother paths, so there's not as much gravel as in some of the areas like you find on the back 40, which makes things much more difficult and quote unquote risky maybe if you don't have the skill level to be out there. So they are not all expert trails. It's mostly intermediate, maybe some novice.
I think the other thing that I would add is regarding the insurance. What we were told is the insurance increase is directly tied to the fire, not to the trails. The Trafalgar fire, of course.
Am I remembering that you said that we have responsibility for these trails whether we own the land or not?
That is correct. Because there's already portions of the back 40 and Little Sugar that are not on POA common property, and we maintain those areas just as if it was on common property. So we're responsible for maintaining that area, whether it's POA or not. It's trail.
And again, I would remind us that with ownership come the possibilities for revenue. So, that being said, I guess we will move it forward to next week's meeting. And I believe that concludes the items on the agenda for today and what will be on the agenda for next week. That brings us to the announcements. Next week's regular monthly session, just before Christmas, December 17th, 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. I don't know who's going to be here with me, but I'll be here. The board candidate informational meeting will be in January the 6th, 4 p.m. here in the board meeting. The recreation JAC meeting, Monday, January 11th, 4 p.m. here. It will be, well, not here. It'll be Zoom only. The golf JAC January meeting on the 13th, Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. Here in the boardroom, and I'm sure it will be available Zoom also. Lakes JAC Wednesday, January 13th, 2 p.m. boardroom and Zoom. The board candidate packets are due January 13th, 5 p.m. to the corporate secretary. That's when they're due. The January GM Board of Directors meeting, closed meeting, is Thursday, January 14th, 4 p.m. Right here in the board meeting. And the work session, Thursday, January 21st, 9 a.m. right here in the boardroom. And the regular session for January, which will reveal the slate of candidates for the board and the order on the ballot, Thursday, January 28th at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Y'all have a Merry Christmas, and please stay safe.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone.